I'm sure you guys were already poised to explode in staff size anyway and need to hire a bunch of people anyway. But I could see just from an outside perspective, just how significant of the hiring effort really ramped up after you guys especially started to push the the global event, which was a lot of fun, by the way, in Dallas. You guys did a great job with that.
Thank you.
And so in that hiring effort, right, that's one of the biggest things that I think a lot of SaaS founders, especially like people who are wanting to actually build a software solution from the ground up, not just white label, but also own the actual code base, and maybe they have their own unique spin on it that they want to do. Finding developers can definitely be finding team members in general, forget technical team members, just team members all around. Finding and placing and retaining, definitely one of the biggest challenges I can see coming up, especially in the new year with inflation being where it's at and salary expectations being as high as they are. So how are you guys planning to combat that? How did you guys overcome some of those challenges this year? And what would you advise to somebody who's maybe in the earlier stages of trying to hire?
Yeah, it's definitely a never-ending cycle. And kind of in that intro that you did, the one part that you forgot is retaining your existing team.
Right.
Because that, like there's this like weird cycle because we had to hire at an accelerated rate. It's very easy to forget the existing team and the hard work that they're putting in. They're holding on the fort while you're trying to, forge, trying to find new people. And if you don't give them attention too, you're at risk of losing great team members who have got you to where you're at. So it's kind of playing this like, you're juggling on both sides.
Right.
And at the same time, you need to make sure that the new team is coming in feeling like they fit the culture. And so, things that we definitely are working on still today and still trying to figure out is, how do we hire aggressively and quickly? And this is, partnering with different companies, recruiting companies. We have internal recruiters in-house. So it's kind of, any possible way to find good talent, let's bring it in.
Yeah.
And then from there, it's making sure that you have a very buttoned down interview process, because that's also a time suck in many ways, right?
Right.
It's to find one person, you got to go through 10 people.
Yeah.
And who's doing those interviews? It's usually one of the strongest players on your team, because
For sure.
and then you're taking away their time, right?
Yeah.
And we do a series interview, so you have maybe 5 or 6 interviews with different people, whether it's a technical one, whether it's a culture fit, whether it's a management meeting, so we have different layers that you have to go through. And so you're talking about one candidate might be burning up 5 hours of time.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then if you do extend the offer, there's a time of negotiating that comes in.
Yeah.
Then onboarding, making sure their equipment comes in. And then once they come in, you got to make sure they have a great onboarding experience, because you want to make sure that they're retained and feel like it's a company that they want to be at. So it's definitely a bigger challenge than just hiring new people.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I would say is, with the way the economy is working, it's still competitive. It's still a very competitive landscape, because I think in tech in general, there's this washout that's happening. Some of the biggest tech companies out there, but then you hear the other stories. We have 10 million available jobs out there, and we can't find enough people. So what's really happening there? And I think it's just the tech side. These large companies overhired historically.
Sure.
And it's just kind of cleaning house in many ways. And now, of course, you hear some extreme stories like Twitter and stuff like that. But as a whole, I think it's through COVID, it was just hire as much as you can.
Sure.
Your team is probably 50, but go ahead and bring it up to 150.
Sure.
And then now it's okay. Now let's kind of do a little cut and bring that team back to 75. But now you get to peel away some of your weaker talent, perceptually. And I think that's kind of what's going on right now.
Right.
And so there's this huge pool of people, but because there's talented individuals out there, they want to make sure they're working for the right company. So they're a little bit more selective when they do these interviews.
Exactly.
You just have to kind of play the game there. And I think in the internet marketing space, there's this like perceptual side of like find the cheapest person possible.
Right.
And I think I kind of look at it, and us as an organization is, you got to pay for the right talent and pay that premium, because it's going to be 10x on the back end and what they're going to be delivering, whether it's customer service to development or whatever. You want to pay that premium because it's going to pay dividends a lot quicker than can someone on the low end who doesn't take it seriously. They're working 3 other jobs because, they're trying to game the system, like it just turns into a negative experience. It kind of gives you, slower growth on the back end as well.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. And, obviously I've hired my fair share of developers as well from all over the place. And yeah, you can oftentimes find that the ones who are the most budget constrained, the ones who are willing to just accept the lowest possible amount, yeah, like you said, they'll have another job, or they'll have, just they won't really care too much about it. Like, especially with technical work, I found, because you have to give corrections a lot. That's where it really comes in, is when you ask somebody to accomplish something, they give you their initial draft, you got to revise it.
Yep.
That kind of effort, extra effort of going through and revising it and making changes, if they're not getting paid, or they don't have some kind of incentive that makes them really motivated for it, I feel like it's definitely a lot harder to get them.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to that vested interest, right? Like,
For sure.
they're not going to take it seriously if they're not, feeling like they're compensated for their time and effort and skill that they're bringing to the table.
For sure. Yeah. And you guys have pretty much always been a global team, right? I mean, your technical co-founder, Varun, is in India, or he's in Qatar now.
He's in
but
Qatar.
He wasn't.
Yeah.
Has he always been in Qatar since you guys started, or was he in India before?
Yeah, he's always been in Qatar. He's originally from India. But yeah, he's always been in Qatar. Sean's in Oregon, and then I'm in Dallas.
So you guys are on 3 different time zones. One of them is on the other side of the world. So like, how did you guys make that work? How do you manage that?
There's a lot of crossover time. But we make it work in the sense of we're a 24/7 company, and there's always someone available, someone always around, able to help, and anything that comes up. So it's worked out naturally for us. And I think, just having strong team members that kind of, that help us along the way make it so much easier as well. And so, that's really what it comes down to, is just having, it doesn't matter about us 3 as co-founders.
Right.
It's really about how strong the team is beneath us. And, we've been very fortunate that, since we started, we've always had great, talented people, and, really love the mission and what we were trying to accomplish. And, they're able to hold the fort in many ways themselves.
And for a lot of again, the people that are kind of in that development space, or maybe they want to be in the development startup space, I've noticed that one big issue, and I actually talked about this with one of your head of engineering. What we talked about is communication, right? The communication issue, especially with engineers, because the last thing you'll ever hear from a really dedicated engineer is, no, I cannot do this. I don't know how to do this, right? You'll always get a, yes, I can do this. Got it. No problem. And then you find out on the back half, when it's supposed to be delivered, that there were a lot of issues, or there was a gap in knowledge that, kind of prevented that from happening. So like, how do you guys maintain that strict and, clear communication with your team to make sure that they feel comfortable being able to really be honest about their own capabilities?
Yeah, one of the things that I always look for, just in hiring, it doesn't matter if it's on the technical side or, front facing, it is that can-do attitude. Like, I love when people are like, yeah, I can do it.
Yeah.
Now, to your point though, it's like when they take it back, it's like this natural feeling of, they asked me to do something, and so I'm going to over deliver.
Right.
And that over deliver can be something extremely complex.
Yeah.
Versus just trying to find something, just a quick exit and get it done right in a very simple manner. And I think that's where a lot of challenges come in. And what we found is it comes back to that feedback loop, right? Like, sure, here's the project, but the model that I personally like working in is like, I want to be a part of, 0%. I want to check in at 10%, give me an update at 30.
Yeah.
Give me an update at 60%. I want to jump back in at 70% to decide if I want to, take it across the finish line, or if I feel like you got it under control. And, building some sort of strategy into it. Now, how do you gauge things at 0%, 20%? That's
Right.
a tough thing, but, just kind of general concept of like making sure that before you get too far ahead, that there's a check-in, because a lot of times it's like, hey, Quentin, we have this new project, let's do something really cool.
Yeah.
And you're like trying to strap together 50 different things and all this. It's like, no. I just wanted you to press a button over here because I can't reach it, right? Like, it could be something as simple as that. But that feedback
over
loop
engineering
really
it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where that feedback loop really comes in, and just making sure that people are kind of progressing, and it helps them think the same way that you're thinking as well.
Got it. Yeah. No, that makes total sense.